October 31st, 1986 was the date that will never be forgotten in the history of Universal Studios. A man had died that fateful night at the Universal Studios lot in what was supposed to be an exciting and fun Halloween event for the first time. What happened? What caused this? And why did it happen? We'll find out in this video. By the 1980s, Universal Studios tour was widely successful and has been going on since its opening in 1964. Its studio tour was very different than any other tour in the Los Angeles area. Here, they go through several things such as a bunch of falling rocks along the way, surviving the shark attack from Amity Island, and recently escaping King Kong's rampage in New York City, all while continuing to maintain how the behind-the-scenes work. There was nothing like it anywhere in the world, not even Disney's studio backlit tour at Disney MGM Studios can compare. By 1986, Universal Studios Hollywood officials noticed the slow growth in the autumn season and needed to find a way to bring back the audience level it needed. They decided that a special Halloween event would take place on the tour. To prepare for this, they took their cues from Knott's Berry Farm's Halloween seasonal event, Knott's Scary Farm, which had been going on for 13 years. Knott's Scary Farm mastered their scare actor tactics that made them successful, and this is where Universal officials were amazed and pushed to have its own Halloween event. Universal Studios had a catalog of famous horror films, possibly more than any other studio, such as Universal Monsters movies, Psycho, and The Birds, and used them to their advantage. Universal Studios set the special Halloween Tram tour date on October 31st and November 1st, which meant 2 days for guests to experience a nighttime tour of horror and scariness. The event will run from 7 p.m. to midnight, and the average ticket for the event cost $14.95. Reportedly, over 70 scare actors will be dressed in scary costumes. The spokesperson for Universal Studios Hollywood bragged that, "We're getting set up to scare the devil out of people." On October 31st, 1986, Halloween Horror Nights had just arrived for a fun Halloween event that will last until November 2nd. About 100 security guards roamed the grounds during the event, with at least 2 guards aboard each tram, which carry a maximum of 175 people. Universal Studios officials said that they sold all 7,500 tickets for each of the first 2 shows, and a few tickets still were available Saturday for the Sunday show. As expected, many scare actors were assigned to their respective locations around the studio tour that Halloween night. Everything in the operation went smoothly until almost 9 p.m. One of the trams went through the finale of the tour, in which they passed through a bunch of mannequins masquerading as dead corpses killed by a chainsaw-wielding killer in the park tram. A man dressed up as a corpse suddenly leaped out among the mannequins in an attempt to scare the guests, and somehow in the process, fell between the 3rd and 4th trams and ended up killed by being dragged for approximately 100 feet. The scare actor died instantly as a result, in a blink of an eye. In the aftermath, first responders responded to the scene of the deadly incident. It was then during the investigation that the victim's name was Paul Ribald Brooks. Not much is known about him, but he was born on May 27, 1966 in the Philippines. At the time of the Halloween Horror Nights event, he was a 1984 Jacksonville High School graduate who lived in the Woodland Hills area of Los Angeles and worked in merchandising for Universal Studios since the beginning of May 1986. His job included selling toys and serving as an assistant manager of a booth that sold film near the front gate. His coworkers and friends described Ribald as a thin, rusty-haired youth who was quick with a smile and who almost always wore dark sunglasses. One of them said that he was one of the sweetest kids that worked up here. He was the kind of guy that always walked around with a smile on his face. Everybody liked him. According to Universal Studios publicity director Joan Bullard, Ribald volunteered for the Halloween night work. "It's not unusual," Bullard said. "We have a lot of volunteer people working on the Halloween event. There is no skill involved in what he did." Ribald was dressed up as a corpse in which he was assigned to leap out among the dead corpses for the scare. What caused his death isn't exactly known, but there's a widespread belief that Ribald may be a bit too enthusiastic about his role and somehow accidentally caught between the third and fourth sections of the trams of one of the four-section trams, which dragged him to his inevitable death. Investigators had concluded that Ribald's death was simply a tragic case of an unfortunate accident and not the fault of negligence on Universal Studios Hollywood's part. In simple words, nobody was legally at fault. Universal Studios Hollywood issued an official statement on November 1st, the next day after Ribald's death. Universal Studios Tour is extremely sorry and saddened that this unfortunate accident occurred last night at a safe and fun event which otherwise was without incident. Bullard also noticed that it was the first fatal accident in the history of Universal Studios Hollywood since its opening in 1964, despite the tour's exemplary safety record. Less than 2 weeks later, Ribald's body was flown to North Carolina, where his family lived. Funeral services were held for him at the Catholic Chapel in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. He was subsequently buried at Onslow Memorial Park in Jacksonville, Onslow County, North Carolina, where he still rests to this day. As for Universal Studios, the tragic incident caused the company to discontinue the event in Hollywood for the time being until 1992, when it was brought back following the popularity of Fright Nights at its sister Universal Studios Florida Park in Orlando, Florida. In addition, Universal Studios discontinued the idea of scare actors attacking the trams permanently in favor of guests physically walking at the backlet after being dropped off from the tram and attacked by the same, similar to most scare zones at Universal's Halloween Horror Nights events around the world. It still remains a question as to whether Universal would resume the old practice of scare actors attacking the trams again, but given the horrific tragedy and the improvement in the safety and welfare of its employee, it's highly unlikely they would go back to something that caused the fatal accident in the first place.